Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. This is our second NAIA ECP Connect and Rules Ed update session. So today we'll go through what we have addressed since our last presentation, new updates that we are working through currently, as well as just general announcements. So please share your questions in the chat as we go along, and we hope to address everything that you guys might be facing at this time. So editing staff and adding staff update. This is just in general between the work process of Play NAIA to NAIA Connect. As you all might have seen online, that there has been an issue of not allowing for our staff to update their own internal staff. So an athletics director is not able to update and edit their own internal staff just yet due to some of the migration pieces. So the current process is to notify Josh Bohr. He is in the eligibility center. He will ask specific questions to get the full information of the person that we need to add to Play NAI, then into NAI Connect. So this would be for the new staff members that most likely were hired sometime in June moving forward. All staff members, including coaches, FARs, compliance, you name it, you can email Josh Bohr with this person's information. If they are a coach, then provide their sport-specific information as well, and also include legislative services on this communication. But we are hoping that by this Friday-ish, and in IT, I know they don't like to see specific dates for implementation, but we're going to hope for the end of this week into next week, this hold of editing staff will be lifted, and athletic directors will be able to add and edit staff as they see fit. This also includes things like adding a coach plus making them an ECP user so that they are able to edit a roster for seasons of competition, etc. Because as of right now, if the person is just a coach, they are only in a view only piece until they are able to have a dual role like an ECP user added on NAI Connect. So that is the current process of editing staff and adding staff. Hopefully by the end of this week into next week, it will be back in the hands of the athletics directors. Most urgent tech issues that we're going to focus on, number one, is the ability to enter a contest date prior to the start date of class. This came up for us, and we were first notified of this around the end of or mid last week into last week. So it's definitely something that we're going to work towards trying to resolve rather quickly, knowing that there's going to be quite a few sports that have, or quite a few teams, I should say, that would have a game prior to the first date of class. So the current guidance and workaround, and I know this is not going to set well for a lot of our people, and I understand for registrars and FARs, but you can put down that August 1 is the first date of class, if that would be the best approach. This will not be a violation of our bylaws, and it will ensure that the certification can be run and that any games happening after August 1 will be, there will not be any holdup into producing a certificate. So if you have current issues where you've already entered your first date of class and you have a competition, that's going to be before the first date of class, and you're not able to move forward, you can contact legislative services at our email, and we can try to do a workaround on the back end from our perspective. But if you're just now getting started and you know your soccer team is going to have their first scrimmage prior to the first day of class, you're going to get an error at this time until we can get this piece resolved. So my best advice is to put down August 1 as your first date of class. And you should be okay to then put in any games after that, and it won't be any issue. So hopefully we'll get this resolved in the next couple of weeks as well. But that was one of the first issues that we have found. Second is students showing in Play NAIA, but are not transferring to the NAIA Connect. So again, students that are received an eligible decision, they're in the short list under Play NAIA. But they're not transferring to NAI Connect. Our advice at this time is that the students just email legislative services, legislative@nai.org again, the student's ECID, do not create a profile from scratch, allow for us to essentially push the student through on the tech backend. And then once the sync has occurred, you will see the students show up in the unassigned section. This is happening relatively quickly, same day as of right now. We're able to sync everything appropriately. So it's a quick turnaround from notifying us. We're able to push the student through tech-wise, and you'll see it on your unassigned list. And we're hoping that we'll have this solved by the end of the week, early next week. But still a tech issue that you'll face, and hopefully will get resolved rather quickly. Okay, students showing as eligible, and in the section roster of eligible when they do not have an EC decision yet. Again, we've identified a possible resolution to this, and we're hoping for implementation of the correction next week. But please be careful with your eligible section of your roster. Even if they're showing as eligible, they may not have an eligible EC decision yet. So keep that in mind as you're working through that. And then once we are able to correct that, hopefully by the end of next week, that part will correct itself. But the eligible decision needs to be listed in the student's decision on the roster as well. So make sure we're identifying that piece. Ability to place a student on hold with partial data and maintaining data input. We also understand that this is an integral part of the process for many of our members, where it might be on the coach to go into the student's profile, put in the student's season the competition, press save and put the student on hold, or now it would list as in progress on the roster, and then pass off the roster to the next person, say a registrar, to put in terms of attendance or credits. We are getting reports that when they, sometimes it seems more times than not, it's tied to a transfer student to where the data is added in. They may click transfer and not do the transfer player eligibility statement, but try to put on hold or save. And the data simply is not saving when we go back in to look at the student. This might be happening as well with just regular students by trying to put in just partial data, pressing on hold and save where the data is not saving. We're working to try to identify the root of this issue right now, and we will try to push this forward as soon as we are able to find a resolution to this. But unfortunately, right now, we do not have a tactical workaround. But please keep that in mind if you're looking to do just partial pieces of a student's profile at a time in placing the student on hold. Okay. Another thing with large rosters, and specifically, of course, we're seeing this with football. Rosters display where you would see a roster with both your eligible, in progress, and ineligible athletes all in one view. The roster is not set to display more than 100 athletes. So if you're just trying to find a student, the best workaround right now is to go to the sort column and do it up and down by last name. And that way you can find students that may not come up in the original view. There is an error in removing students from rosters. Again, more with this large roster view, specifically with football. We're having an issue where this.
What? No, I had a meeting. I'll look her up after the meeting.
So along with the roster of displaying, there's an error in removing students from rosters. There's not a workaround at this time. So unfortunately, these students that you've added to a roster, maybe like under football, for instance, they might have to stay there until we're able to provide an update to that. So we're working to identify the root of this issue, and we'll tell you when we have that resolved as well. All right, finally, the enhancement phases, the next phase of updates that we are currently still tracking on. The pieces that I have covered thus far are the more urgent pieces that we're trying to rectify immediately in the next couple of weeks, knowing that the big push for certification is going to be coming rather soon. So these things are right behind the most important fixes. And so we're still keeping them on our radar as things that we need to identify moving forward. So part of that is clearly marking that a certificate has been submitted after the date of first competition. So being able to see that in a quick viewpoint. The certificate export currently does not list the institution's student ID. So we're looking to add that. Clearly identifying a roster as a varsity roster or JV roster when you're looking at the roster view. Right now, for instance, it would just show for soccer and will not show a varsity soccer versus a JV soccer if you have created two separate rosters. We need to make that a clear view in the roster view. Members request to be able to have a printable roster view before moving to the certificate process. Right now, we are able to export the working certificate into an Excel file prior to submitting the certificate for all 4 signers. So that is still there. But having something of a printable roster view right now, you're able just to print the roster if you wish to do so from your internet's viewpoint, but having something that might be more exported is still in progress, and we're looking at that. And members' requests for an ineligible student athlete worksheet. Again, from the roster view, you are able to see students that are listed as eligible, in progress, and ineligible. So you do have the names of ineligible students listed on the roster view, but it may not show the reason why the student is ineligible. So we're going to look at that as a viewpoint and see what we can do to help provide that as an option. Okay. I will pause here for a quick second. Morgan, is there anything that we need to add or address from the chat?
No, we have not gotten one question.
Okay.
I'm looking at it.
Good deal. Hopefully everybody's just absorbing the information. Okay, so moving into, yes, so we do have a question just to double check that we'll get a copy of the slides. I'll show you here in a second where we're posting our presentation recording and slides online, so you're able to go in and get this information again later. So repeat reminders that I shared last week and some best practices. So again, here under our training materials, under this blue box here, we go to Rules Ed and ECP training materials. This webpage is continuing to grow the more information we're posting. So for instance, last week, under this very first top box of the ECP Connect, we included the recording from last week, the PowerPoint slides, and some key takeaways. So the same practice will happen again after today's presentation. We'll post the presentation online with the PowerPoint slide and key takeaways, so you're able to access this information. So look to bookmark the training materials page as more and more information is added to this page to help you with the ECP and rules information webpage. And Morgan added that link in the chat as well. So under this is a viewpoint from just the legislative services page. Again, in the blue boxes on the right-hand side of it, many of you have not really taken time to look into the right-hand side of these boxes, but a lot of really good information is over here on the right side, including the legislative forms page. In the legislative form page will include information that is helpful for, here, I'll go to here, the next page. Oops. Additional forms to help with your certification process. So the first piece is a certificate of clearance. Last week we talked about this, and Marsha Lashley from Missouri Valley was kind enough to share an example that she offers. The current process in ECP does not provide an automatic output of a certificate of clearance like the old system did. But under our forms page on NAIA and legislative services, we still have supplemental forms that are there to help with your certification process. So I've highlighted that at the very bottom with the gray box. And so there we have just a worksheet of the eligibility certificate process. We have a copy of a certificate of clearance, an updated copy of the transfer player eligibility statement, and outside competitive experience form. Those forms have all been updated to reflect the questions that are currently in our online ECP system. So you're able to utilize those forms, especially with the transfer player eligibility statement, wishing to have a student review the information with you, as the FAR has to interview the student and have the student sign. Those forms can be found online. The certificate of clearance, we provide a PDF version of it with our suggested language. But as we were discussing last week, and we can share this example online, we are able to have a lot of colleagues, they utilize their own process internally to have students sign a certificate of clearance, sometimes electronically. So you can utilize the certificate of clearance, just some wording to make sure you're reflecting the NAIA regulations and FERPA regulations. But also we'll provide some good examples from our colleagues who have developed their own system on campus to make it more seamless. Also want to provide an update here, the last bullet point. We have a tracer. So with the new bylaws that were passed this past spring, the season of competition has been changed for students transferring from another athletic association. Namely, a student athlete, we will not honor seasons of competition from another athletic association if the student athlete was charged specifically for practice, or if they were charged because they were evaluated for outside competitive experience outside of the NAIA. So the key question with the new seasons of competition moving forward is, why was the student charged from the previous intercollegiate athletic association? This new tracer that we're provided online helps provide guidance on how to ask those questions. The Eligibility Center was very kind to help us provide this new form. So this gets to help us ask the question of, why was the student athlete charged from the previous athletic association? You can utilize this tracer for yourself when you're doing your own personal outreach if you would like. Not a requirement though. It's not a requirement to include in the certificate process, but it's there for you to use. Okay, just a quick reminder, I covered this last week as well. It's just reviewing the updates on how to look at things from a different perspective in this new version that we're working through. So just to remind you that the roster view currently is the working data point that you'll look for information for your students as you are editing their information, working on what is in progress / on hold, who is ineligible and who's certified as eligible. So this will be your main point. I was talking with somebody today to say this is your one kind of true data point for your team for the academic term. And then as you are adding and editing students, you would always go back to the roster view to edit. And then you will build your certificate and then subsequent certificates from there. Okay, before I dive into the rules education update, Morgan, would you like to share any questions from the chat?
Just any plans on including the certificate of clearance in the future into the ECP? I don't think so, right?
As of right now, the feedback that we got from our members is that since there's quite a few that utilize the certificate of clearance in different forms or fashions, we haven't made the decision to include it in our ECP right now. And I think once we start learning from our other colleagues in the membership, there are some probably better and more efficient ways of gathering signatures for certificate of clearance that would be a lot more efficient than what we have here in our ECP. So I probably would defer to our members who have really worked to find ways that are more of electronic based before we try to implement anything in our programming.
And then the next one, so are we not submitting the transfer form to our eligibility chair anymore either? You are technically, it's just on the ECP now, like included in the student's profile page.
Correct. So we have always included the transfer player eligibility statement or the form. It's always been included in the packet. Previously, it was a little bit of a separate process where you would click the transfer on the student screen, and then you'd have to remember to go in and edit that form. It's a PDF. So here the questions have been embedded in the student's profile. So once the eligibility chair receives the certificate, they will see that a student has been clicked as a transfer, and the statement will be required to be completed within that. The copy that is the interview questions and the student signs will still stay on campus like it has been in previous iterations. And so that would be for your records of showing due diligence of interviewing the student athlete. But on the student's profile, we have embedded all the required questions. So the eligibility chair will still see that that has occurred and the answers have been verified by the FAR as included in the certificate in the questions. Okay, we'll go ahead and move into rules education update. Okay, first big thing, and you should have received the notice that went out yesterday. We've been very mindful in understanding that our members, especially with the tech growing pains and adding new employees, new coaches since June has been a little bit of a cumbersome act, and making sure that all people have access to the required trainings and accessing it correctly. We spoke with our National Eligibility Committee, the committee that oversees our bylaw applications, and they have granted our membership a one-time exception for all members, returning members and new members, to have the required course completion to be completed by October 1. So this is, again, one-time exception. Everybody will need to have their training completed by October 1, whether you are a returning member or continuing. The reports are now live for athletics directors or their staff to check the progress of the courses that are being completed. So I did a couple screenshots. I also plan on adding a video online that shows this process as well. But as of right now, it's only showing for athletics directors, but we do plan on expanding this view to others, because I've gotten questions from FARs and compliance assistant athletics directors who are kind of chosen to oversee this process for their athletics department. So we are working on expanding this view for everyone. But as of right now, we do know only athletics directors are able to see the reports. So as an athletics director, right next to your learning and training viewpoint on NAI Connect, you click on reports, and then you would go over to it will show either in recent, if you clicked on recent reports, or all reports. And the title is Accounts with Contact and Learning Plan. And then from there, this is how the report will view for athletics directors. And you will see here that we've had one required training for returning staff members has been completed at 100%. Shout out Sean Sumi at Avila. This is your list here. Sean was the first one here who was completed 100%. So this is the view that you will see with all of your staff members here included, and who has completed their progress, either in progress or has finally completed. And just a quick note here at the bottom, you're able to look at different details, and you can expand on grand total, subtotals, etc. if you wish, but this is kind of the condensed version. And then the next piece is, again, a reminder of the required courses versus optional. So the ones that are required are listed in red, but not all red courses must be completed. That is for it's according to your role at the institution, or if you are new or returning. So for this example listed here, if you are new athletics director, newly hired, you are required to complete the red course for the new athletic directors. If you are a returning member, you only need to do is the returning NAI member course. You do not have to do all red courses, just the one that pertains to your current role or your status within the NAI. The other ones, if you're able to have a full license view, The others are going to be in blue. And so there's some that are available if you are like a returning member, but want to have a refresher on the full official eligibility certification, or recruiting and contact. You can click into those other courses and take those as optional courses. Okay, so I'm going to pause there for any other questions as we look to next Tuesday, July 30th is going to be the next to last essentially program that we're going to have for ECP, depending on how we are doing with some of this development and updates. We could have another one in August to help with, expand on some of this information. But I'm going to stop there and open it up for any questions that you may have either in the chat. Okay, so we have a question about what about rules education for new FARs? New FARs, there is a rules education that states for new administrators, and that includes FARs and compliance. So that is part of the four options of required courses. We have a section for new athletics directors, new coaches, SIDs, and athletic trainers, new administrators, which includes FARs and other compliance personnel. Registrars are included in that as well. And then just the returning members. The next question we had is, will the same information be presented at the July 30th training? The training is going to be similar to today, where we'll have updates. We'll include what we have covered from this past couple of weeks, tech updates that are hopefully have been fixed so that you are aware as you're tracking on any issues that you might be facing currently. And then we will expand upon anything else that we are identifying as issues that our members are reporting to us. As we are receiving them here. Of course, they're not coming in hot and heavy. So we had a question, if it does not allow me as an AD to create a certificate, who should I contact? Heather, please contact us at legislative@nai.org and we will dive into that for you.
We have that email too, and we'll get back to you today.
There any best practices that you all have kind of identified from your end? Feel free to unmute and jump in to share what you have found to be helpful within this new system, or a best practice that you have found to be of use and that you would wish to share with the rest of the membership. Okay, last couple of updates here. Here are the ways to contact us if you have questions. So we had a quick question here in the chat. Thank you, Alan. I'll go ahead and answer this one. The new transfer player eligibility statement, it is much shorter than the old one to help reduce redundancy of questions. So this FAR says, since I meet with some athletes before they have an EC decision, can I still use the old form? You certainly can use the old form. I can share that with you if you want to reach out to us and we can share the old form with you. Or you can, for the new students that have entered information, you can work off the current form if you'd like. But if you found the old form to be very helpful for you, just reach out to us and we'll be happy to share that old form for your interview process with the transfer students. So again, when connecting with us and asking questions, the NAI Connect support at NAI.org is a tech-related ticket, essentially. So if something is just not working tech-wise, you can contact that email. If it's more tech-related, possibly, but also possible application questions, you can reach out to legislative@nai.org, or feel free to submit your question to both email accounts and we'll be able to answer what the questions that you have. You're also, we're happy to start meeting with you if you want to book some time with us. This is also under our contact information on the legislative page, and you can meet with us for 15 or 30-minute blocks, either myself or Morgan, and we can talk about some tech updates, some excuse me, questions you might have, or a little bit more in-depth discussion of rules education. So please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Love to hear your feedback on the system, if there's anything else that might be missing for you or you need help with. If there's anything, any tech issue, we haven't seen anything in the chat, but if there's a tech issue that we have not addressed today, please do so right now here as we're wrapping up, because we want to make sure that we're identifying everything that we need to identify. Finally, one last piece, just because I'm seeing Larry and Terry Harris. For our eligibility chairs, there's going to be just a couple of quick tweaks that we're working on with your login in view. So eligibility chairs, please hold tight and we'll get back with you so you can get just a couple of things. You're very welcome, Larry. A couple of things that you guys will have that's specific for your view. We'll make sure that you have that. So Sabina, how can an AD confirm their staff has completed the trainings if the system is not reporting properly? Please, I think you've probably been communicating with Morgan. If you feel like the system's not reporting something completed, please reach out to us at Legislative and we can double check that on the back end.
Let me jump in.
Go ahead.
This is actually a known issue where if you're an AD and you're looking at the report, you'll see your progress and you'll see your staff listed, but you won't see their progress in the learning plans. So that's something we're actively working on at the moment.
You're very welcome. So to help with Dr. Saylor's, her question was, in building a roster, the students on the short list, are they from Play NAIA short list? So for this current term that we're certifying, essentially all student athletes past and then current student athletes going through Play NAIA are all going to show up on your short list if they were certified with you all previously. That way, that is kind of building your new, what would you call it? Your new roster keeps coming to mind, your new section. After this, the short list will kind of play out to be very similar to the short list you see on Play NAIA. So right now it is just a bucket of all previous student athletes that not all of them, but for a period of time, student athletes you certified under your rosters last year are under the short list, as well as Play NAIA students. And then it will kind of play out to the different buckets that you see today. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.